This story begins in 2010. Alex, I, had just arrived in the Central Coast, a bustling coastal city. After leaving my small town of Greenwood Hills, I came with 3 partners, Marcus, Ben, and Chris, to start our signature dessert business. A type of sweet pancake cooked in a cast iron pan. Initially, we rented a modest house. For the first month, everything went according to plan. We worked hard, dividing the tasks from mixing the dough, cooking, and wrapping. However, our rental house had a problem. The noise from our milling machine was too loud. The landlord refused to renew the lease, forcing us to find a new place in less than 2 weeks. The search for a new rental proved futile. Most of the properties were in densely populated areas, and we were worried that the engine noise would cause problems again. In the midst of this tense situation, my 3 colleagues, Marcus, Ben, and Chris, suddenly began acting strangely. They decided to leave simultaneously, citing urgent family matters. They promised to return in a few days. They left all their responsibilities, keys, dealer contacts, and cash with me. I waited, filled with anxiety. A week passed, and their phones were dead. Finally, I managed to reach Marcus. "Alex, we're sorry. We can't go back," he said coldly. Ben and Chris gave the same answer. Betrayal and anger burned in my chest. I'd been left alone, made a scapegoat to run this business in a foreign city. I contacted our boss, Mr. Davies, who reassured me and promised to get help once the move was complete. I had to move quickly. I rented an open-top van to transport my belongings. After searching for 3 days, I found a property on the outskirts of town, close to a plantation and an irrigation canal. The rental extended to the back, spacious, with a bedroom, a kitchen, and an old well in the backyard, surrounded by large, lush trees. The property felt lonely and isolated. During the move, the van driver refused to help unpack, simply dropping them off at the front door. I had to carry everything, from the cupboards and the homemade stove to the gas cylinder, all by myself. Just as the sun was setting, I finished. The van driver left immediately, hurriedly, without saying goodbye after receiving his payment. I stood among the piles of goods, in the cold, twilight darkness, surrounded by silence and a heavy aura. It was then, as evening crept in, and I was completely alone, that the figure appeared. Amidst the shadows of the twilight, beside the van that had just left, stood a young man. Tall, thin, with dark, curly hair. He looked at me calmly.
"Sir, do you need help?"
He asked quietly. I was surprised by the young man's sudden appearance. Desperation at being abandoned by my colleagues made me immediately accept his offer of help. "What's your name?" I asked. "My name is Ryan," he replied. "I'm from out of town, homeless. I'm looking for any job I can find." I was delighted. Ryan seemed sincere and strong. He immediately helped me carry all the heavy equipment into the empty rental. The house was long and like a hallway. After setting up the homemade stove in the main room, we chatted at length. I told him all the details of our sweet pancake business, from the milling process to the packaging. Ryan listened intently. Right after everything was assembled, he volunteered. "Mr. Alex, I'd love to help you out here." The offer was like a godsend. "Of course, Ryan. I really need your help," However, he had a strange condition. But I can only work from dusk to 5 a.m. After that, I have to help my brother sell fish at the market, traveling around town until noon. Although his hours were unusual, I ignored it. I called Mr. Davies, our boss. Mr. Davies agreed to let Ryan help out temporarily. 3 days later, after all the raw material preparations were complete, we began production. At exactly 6 p.m., as dusk was creeping in, Ryan arrived. Without me calling, without any specific time, he arrived. He immediately helped me squeeze coconut milk and boil it with pandan leaves. I immediately went to a nearby stall, owned by Mrs. Willow, to buy 2 dinners and 2 cups of tea. Mrs. Willow was a friendly stall owner, who would soon become a silent witness to our strange encounter. That night, after eating in separate rooms, May in the main room, Ryan in the kitchen, we slept in the same room, side by side. At midnight, we woke up, mixed the batter, and cooked until dawn. The pancakes were cooked in a quick, iron pan. After the first pan of 50 pancakes was cooked, I called Ryan into the front room to teach him how to wrap them. "Ryan, here's how to wrap them," I explained, then turned back to the kitchen to get the pancakes that were already cooked on the next pan. The kitchen and the front room weren't far apart, taking only a few seconds. When I returned to the front room, I was completely speechless. All 50 pancakes had been neatly wrapped. Not only that, but they had been grouped and separated according to orders from different stores. I hadn't even told Ryan the order list or the details of the quantities. This speed is insane, I thought to myself. Ryan worked with an efficiency that surpassed normal human capabilities. For the next 30 days, the pattern repeated itself. Ryan arrived in the afternoon, worked tirelessly until morning, always finishing the wrapping job at a frightening pace, and left before dawn. Over the course of that month, I began to notice something strange about Ryan's physical condition. Whenever I slept next to him, he always lay on his back, frozen like a statue, never moving on his side. One night, I accidentally touched his hand as I turned over. Ryan's body felt cold, very cold. But strangely, the touch didn't feel solid like flesh and bone. It felt loose, like touching or holding a thin, frozen mass of cloth. When I asked about his health, especially why his neck always seemed so stiff, Ryan replied, "I've been sick like this for the past 3 years." I ignored any oddities because Ryan had become my sole support in this strange city. He was the perfect work partner, even though he was just a worker who came in from the shadows and left before sunrise. For over 30 days, that routine was the only thing keeping me going on the Central Coast. Every night, Ryan and I went to work, and every morning, I returned to the routine of buying food at Mrs. Willow's stall. I always bought 2 portions. I was always careful not to mention Ryan's strangeness to anyone. However, one Monday morning, after a quiet holiday, Mrs. Willow asked a question that changed everything. "Alex, where's your friend? Why are you the only one always coming to buy food?" Mrs. Willow asked. "He's at home, ma'am. He's busy and doesn't like to be disturbed," I replied, trying to be casual. "Next time, ma'am, I'll invite him over so he can get to know me." Then I described Ryan's characteristics: tall, thin, with dark curly hair, and from out of town. Mrs. Willow fell silent for a moment. Her usually cheerful face turned deathly pale. She stared at me for a long time, as if comparing the characteristics I'd mentioned with the image in her head. Then, she asked a question that made my blood run cold. On his left cheek, is there a mole, Alex? I was shocked. Yes, ma'am. Right on his left cheek. How did you know? I thought Ryan was a local. Mrs. Willow didn't answer. She hurried back to the shop and called her husband. After a few whispers, Mrs. Willow's husband, a respected older man, came out and looked at me with a serious look.
Alex, may I visit your rental house tonight?
She asked. Of course, I agreed. I was happy to at least have an adult come over. That evening, Mrs. Willow's husband came to our apartment. I went in first to call Ryan, who was supposed to be boiling coconut milk in the kitchen. Ryan, we have a visitor. Mrs. Willow's husband is here to see you, I exclaimed. The kitchen was empty. No coconut milk boiling. No trace of Ryan. I looked in the bedroom, the back, the garden, but nothing. I returned to the front room and said, "Excuse me, sir. It looks like Ryan's out for a moment." We waited in the living room for almost an hour. The apartment felt quiet, cold, and empty. Ryan never showed up. Mrs. Willow's husband finally returned home, looking confused and worried. A few moments later, Ryan walked in through the front door, walking at a leisurely pace. "Where have you been, Ryan? Mrs. Willow's husband is looking for you," I asked. "Just taking a walk, Alex," he replied, flatly. The next day, Mrs. Willow's husband looked for me again, but this time, he took me straight to the house of Mr. Jensen, the local neighborhood director. I was scared. I thought my presence had violated city regulations. At Mr. Jensen's house, the atmosphere was tense. Mr. Jensen asked me about my co-worker. "Alex, what's your friend's name? Where is he from? What does he look like?" I explained all the details. Name, Ryan, from out of town, tall, curly hair, mole on his left cheek, always wearing the same green shirt. Mr. Jensen, upon hearing that description, stared at me with a sharp, serious gaze. He then uttered a sentence that shattered all the logic I had held so dear. "Alex, that's not a human. That's not a person. He's just a spirit," I gasped. I felt nauseous. It couldn't be. I'd worked with him, slept with him, talked to him every day for a whole month. Mr. Jensen then revealed the hidden truth. Ryan was a former tenant of the house. 3 years ago, Ryan ended his life by hanging himself in the bedroom I now occupy. His body was found hanging, and the wealthy landlord kept the story a secret so the house could remain rented. Trust me, Alex. Your friend is just a spirit. A spirit who ended his life in your room. I stood before them, sweating, my body shivering violently. I was the second victim to inhabit the house's grave. That night was my first night back at the rented house after learning Ryan's identity. It felt like returning to the lion's den. I returned filled with hatred and fear. I hated Ryan for deceiving me for a month, and I was terrified because he was a spirit who had ended his life in my room. Ryan was already home when I arrived. He was sitting in the front room, waiting for me. "Where have you been, Alex?" "You've been piling up with work," he said coldly. His voice was flat and emotionless, a drastic change from his previously friendly tone. I could only reply nervously. That night, we worked in complete silence. There was no more conversation. I could only steal glances at him. After learning the truth, my eyes sharpened. Ryan no longer looked like a sick human. His body now looked more translucent, like a thick, compressed fog. The most horrifying change was around his neck. His usual green shirt was now slightly open. There, a deep, blackened rope mark was clearly visible around his neck. The rope mark looked thick, as if the flesh on his neck had been torn by the weight of his own body. Every time he moved, the scar seemed to grin, revealing his death. I trembled at the thought of being near him. I worked at a frantic pace, willing the time to pass quickly. It was time for bed. I lay down on my bed, and Ryan lay down beside me again, sprawled out on his back, as stiff as usual. I didn't dare close my eyes. I turned over, facing away from him, hugging the pillow tightly, my whole body stiff with fear. Suddenly, Ryan's cold hand touched my back. His soft, frigid body pressed against mine, and the chill penetrated down to my spine. It wasn't human. It felt like a living block of ice. I screamed silently, trying to hold my breath so he wouldn't notice my fear. Ryan knew I knew his secret. That's why he touched me. He wanted to make sure I wouldn't leave him. The next morning, I woke up, physically shattered. It wasn't from hard work, but from sleeping all night in a tense state, afraid of being touched by ghosts. I immediately called Mr. Davies and told him everything. "Boss, I can't take it anymore. I have to get out of this house now." Mr. Davies was shocked. He knew I wasn't joking. He agreed that I had to leave. We planned to move all the machinery and equipment to the new rental in 2 days. At that moment, I had to stay calm. I had to pretend everything was fine in front of Ryan. "Ryan, I'm going to the store to buy some new equipment. I'll be gone all day," I said. Ryan stared at me blankly.
Are you leaving me, Alex?
His face was expressionless, but I sensed a suffocating threat in his gaze. "No, I'm just going for a little while," I replied, pretending to grab my bag. "I'll be back tonight." I quickly left the rental and grabbed my motorcycle. My heart was pounding. I didn't look back. I just wanted to get as far away from that haunted house as possible. Just as I reached the main highway, my phone rang. It was Ryan. "You can't leave me, Alex. Remember, I've been helping you make money." His voice was calm, but it made my knees weak. How could he possibly know I was running away? I looked back, but the rented house was already far away. I ignored it and kept driving. Shortly after, a text message came in. I stopped abruptly. The message was written in a strange language, one I didn't understand. I panicked and pulled over, trembling, afraid he was already behind me. That's when I realized something terrifying. Ryan had managed to take control of my phone. The strange text message Ryan sent to my phone made me panic, and I accelerated my motorcycle. I hid in a busy fast food restaurant, a place I thought was safe. After calming down, I looked back at the strange message. I immediately called Mr. Davies, my boss, and told him the entire story of Ryan's strange behavior, including that last message. Mr. Davies listened intently, then his voice became anxious. "Alex, you need to calm down. That message meant it's not human, sir. Some kind of warning." Hearing that translation, my knees buckled. Not only did Ryan know I'd escaped, he'd also sent a message from the other world, a language only he and the other spirits knew. I was completely unsafe. Mr. Davies immediately asked me to return to get my essentials and check into a hotel. I decided to return to my rented house. However, I didn't use my motorcycle. I hired a taxi and asked the driver to wait 100 meters from the house, ready to take me away at any moment. I quickly got in. I grabbed my backpack and stuffed all my cash and important documents into it. As I was about to reach for my motorcycle keys, Ryan appeared from behind. "Where are you going, Alex?" "Our work isn't finished yet," he said, his voice deep and demanding this time. "I have to leave, Ryan. I can't work with you anymore." "You're not human!" I shouted, turning around. Suddenly, Ryan's face changed. The ligature marks on his neck became more visible, and his eyes now shone with a deep darkness. I instinctively pushed him away. My hand passed through his body as if pushing through air, but at the same time, a bone-chilling chill swept through my body. He wasn't solid, but he was real. I panicked and ran toward the front door, hoping to jump into a taxi. But at the threshold, I felt as if I'd hit an invisible steel wall. I was thrown backward, my head hitting the hard floor. Ryan walked over slowly. "You can't leave, Alex. You're tied to this place." Ryan raised his hand, pointing to the corner of the room where I kept the pancake maker. "I helped you. I gave you the wealth your 3 friends couldn't. And now, you want to run?" Ryan then displayed his full power. Instantly, all the tools we used, from the iron pan to the stove, vibrated violently, as if being powered by an invisible force. "You have to work for me, Alex. We'll work together every night, until I get what I want," Ryan hissed. "What do you want? Why are you doing this?" I asked, shaking violently. "I need help, Alex. I need a sacrifice," he replied. "I can only leave if I find someone else willing to be my bound slave, in my place. You have 2 choices, Alex. First, you obey and find a replacement sacrifice for me. Second, you resist me, and you will be the second sacrifice to die in that room. You will work for me forever, without rest." I was breathless. Ryan wasn't just a ghost. He was a bound servant, seeking freedom by sacrificing the lives of others, and I was the strongest candidate. After Ryan's threats, I had no choice but to obey. I was a prisoner in that house. If I tried to escape, I would die. And if I died, I would become the second bonded slave. From that moment on, our working relationship changed from mere colleagues to slave and supervisor. Ryan never remained calm again. All night long, he would stand behind me, watching every stir and every wrapping. The pressure of his presence alone was enough to make me tremble. I was forced to find new workers. I started posting ads on bulletin boards in nearby small towns. Of course, I couldn't say the job was a bound slave position. I was simply looking for hard workers willing to work the night shift. Ryan knew what I was doing. He never left me alone. Every time I called potential applicants, Ryan would be standing by my side. And whenever I tried to hide any questionable details of the job, like the late-night shifts and the isolation of the premises, Ryan would hiss softly in my ear. "Tell me the truth, Alex. Tell me this job is forever." Finally, I found one name. Kevin, a young man desperately looking for any kind of work. Kevin was scheduled to arrive the next night. That night, I couldn't sleep. Ryan fell back asleep beside me, sprawled out stiffly. I turned to face him. I saw him clearly. Ryan's face was streaked with tears. They were pitch black, like ink. He was crying silently, without moving an inch. "Why are you crying, Ryan?" I whispered. "I'm tired, Alex. I'm tired of being this bonded slave," he replied. "I have to work forever, repeating the same cycle. Tomorrow night, you will bring my replacement. Someone willing to take on this suffering. You cannot fail, Alex. If you do, I will bring you to this world as well. I will make sure you never leave this room." The threat ended with a cold laugh that boomed through the silent room. The laughter didn't come from his mouth, but from the cold air pressing against my neck. I knew Kevin was my last chance at freedom. That night, at 6 p.m., Kevin arrived. I opened the door. Kevin was an innocent young man, looking exhausted and desperate for work. He carried a worn backpack, ready to work. As Kevin stepped into the rental, the atmosphere suddenly turned very cold. I could feel Ryan's thick aura, watching us from inside the bedroom. I had to remain calm. I led Kevin into the main room, where the machines and iron pans were located. I explained the night shift, the decent pay, and the solitude of the place. Kevin accepted all the terms without question. "I really need money, Mr. Alex. I'll work hard," he said, his voice filled with hope. Every word Kevin said pierced my heart. I felt like the devil selling an innocent soul to hell. As I was explaining how the homemade stove worked, Ryan appeared. He stood in the bedroom doorway. This time, he wasn't wearing his old green shirt, but a white t-shirt that looked dirty and tattered, just like the one he probably wore when he ended his life. "Who's this, Alex?" Ryan asked, his voice filled with authority. "This is Kevin, Ryan. He's our new employee," I replied, trying hard not to shake. Kevin extended his hand. Ryan returned the offer. Kevin immediately flinched. His face paled, his eyes widening as if he'd just seen something horrific. Ryan's grip on Kevin's hand seemed normal to him, but I knew what was happening. Kevin felt the chill of death seeping into his bones. "Kevin, huh?" Ryan smiled, a creepy, unnatural smile. "You're going to work hard here. You'll never rest." I immediately told Kevin to prepare the ingredients in the kitchen, leaving him alone. This was my chance. I whispered to Ryan, "Are you happy? I brought it. Now, let me go." Ryan shook his head and pointed to the pile of pancakes I had just cooked. "Not yet, Alex. There's one more step." Ryan walked over to the scrap metal grinding machine. He closed his eyes, and suddenly, the air in the room swirled violently, carrying the scent of rusted iron and dried blood. Ryan began to utter strange phrases, a language not of the human world. His voice was high-pitched and deep, as if two voices were speaking within one body, the voice of a spirit and the voice of a machine. In the kitchen, Kevin suddenly screamed. It was short, broken, and filled with pain. I knew the curse was shifting. Kevin's soul was being pulled into a death contract. I saw Kevin return to the main room, his face completely blank, his body rigid, his eyes staring straight ahead, much like Ryan had when I first met him. Kevin grabbed a rag and began cleaning the floor with rapid, mechanical movements. Ryan stared at Kevin. Then, he turned to me, his face now looking cleaner, more human, and the strangulation marks on his neck had faded to the point of being almost invisible. "He's mine now," Ryan said with satisfaction. "He'll be the next bonded servant." "Reese, am I free?" I asked. Ryan nodded. "Yes, you may go now. I've been freed from this cursed place, and Kevin will take my place, working eternally." I wasted no time. I grabbed my backpack and ran as fast as I could. By the time I crossed the threshold, the previously suffocating chill had completely vanished. I turned around and saw Ryan smiling at Kevin, who was working at breakneck speed to clean the machine. I knew I had sold a life for my own freedom. I kept running, ignoring the waiting taxi. I wanted to get as far away from the Central Coast, from this cursed house, and from the screams of Kevin, who would soon become the next bound slave. I left the Central Coast that day, never looking back. I canceled all my appointments with Mr. Davies and ignored his calls. I knew I was a criminal, someone who had traded innocence for freedom. For weeks, I lived in fear. I often woke up at night to the sound of pancakes cooking and the electric grinder vibrating in the darkness of my hotel room. I tried to convince myself it was just trauma. I tried to contact Mr. Davies. I told him everything that had happened about Ryan, Kevin, and the bonded slave curse. Mr. Davies listened intently, but all he said was, "Alex, forget it. It's none of your business anymore." Exactly 2 months after I ran away, I decided to find out the fate of the 3 friends who had betrayed me: Marcus, Ben, and Chris. I called Marcus. "I'm sorry, Alex. We can't go back there," Marcus said. "We went back to Greenwood Hills, but we were so unlucky. We tried the same food business, but it failed miserably." I asked, "Why didn't we?" "Every night, our machine runs by itself," he answered, his voice trembling. "We hear the sound of dough being kneaded, even though no one is in the kitchen. We hear very fast, cold footsteps. We have to close. We're going crazy." I was speechless. The bound servant curse wasn't just tied to the house, but to the business itself. The pancake machine was a spiritual medium. I was relieved. Their betrayal had been met with retribution. A few months later, I moved to a faraway town in a quiet, mountainous area. I worked in a small warehouse, trying to live a normal life. One night, I was working late alone. The warehouse was dark and cold. Suddenly, I smelled the aroma of burnt pandan leaves and coconut milk. It was a scent I had long forgotten, the very distinctive aroma of our sweet pancake business. My knees gave out. I turned around. In the corner of the room, in the darkness, stood a young man. Tall, thin, with dark, curly hair. The scar from the ligature on his neck had completely disappeared. It was Ryan. "You know, Alex," he said in a soft, no longer threatening voice. "Kevin did a great job. He was very fast. I'm finally free. I couldn't move." I just stared at him, suffocating with fear and guilt. "Thank you for the sacrifice," he said. "But I didn't come to repay you. I just wanted to remind you." "Remind you of what?" I whispered. Ryan smiled faintly. "Remember, Alex, the bound servant is only looking for a replacement. I've found my freedom. But one day, Kevin will tire. And he'll look for his friend too."
"He will look for you, Alex. Because you are the one who brought him into the contract of death."
Then, Ryan disappeared into the shadows. From then on, I lived in the shadows. I knew I'd never truly be free. One day, Kevin, the new bound servant, would find me. I'd be an eternal fugitive, haunted by the crimes I'd committed to survive. I never touched the food business again. I knew the spirit was bound, and I was the one bound to it.